I guess this will serve as a morning talk, I guess, for the public. This week has been odd, even though it's just Wednesday. It's been the attack of the old broads and the old chicks, the old Gen Xers, have been out in abundance complaining about the lack of quality men or men protecting us, the failure of black men, the usual trope, but it's something that we expected to hear from the younger women, the women like under 30. And what we're hearing is a lot of these older women, the ones in the 45 plus range, complaining and talking about the same thing, which you would think is counterintuitive because with men in different age groups, we complain, but we don't complain about the same thing. And those two come in two different flavors, two different camps with men. The ones under 35 and the ones over 35. The ones under 35 are trying to get women. They're trying to be with women. They're trying to figure them out, right? For the most part. Now, it's a gradient going all the way down to the teens, but for the most part, guys under 35 are in the acquisition phase. And so their complaints about women are different. And the guys over 35, as you go up the scale, it's more like, I've had them and I'm tired of them. And I'm tired of dealing with them. I'm trying to find women that have attitudes that I can actually deal with. So it is the cutting back phase when you get over 35. For the most part, not everyone. You still have those guys out there still trying to beat their chest and prove that they're the best qualified man. But for the most part, those are the two categories, especially when you see men that are accomplished. You don't really see them complaining about women, at least not in that way, not as trying to get with them. Now, like I said, they're trying to come to grips with them as far as their role in women's role in their lives. But it's not an acquisition phase. It's more like I'm tired phase. I call it mini monk mode. But with women, and it has been highlighted because Vivica Fox ran a panel, I think it was maybe a week or two ago, because I actually saw it on the Code Breakers show. They actually played the 12-minute clip. And there was a group of 4 women, Selena Johnson, Lisa Ray, Vivica Fox. There was one other, I can't remember her name. But they're all in their mid-40s to 50s. And they're saying the same things that women in their 20s are saying. I mean, almost verbatim, the same thing that women in their 20s are saying. And I was kind of surprised that accomplished women, it's not like these women aren't accomplished, because all the women on the panel were all beautiful women and are all accomplished, and the lack of men shouldn't have been their problem. But they were all woofing about the exact same thing that, say, young strags were complaining about. And they just highlighted because you had Nicole Lowry Parker and you had this other chick. I think this chick was a strag. She was strag in her 40s. And I think Tara Dallas, I think that was her name. And you can see it's consistent across the board, complaining about black men's failure. And the thing is that at some point you would expect women in their 40s and 50s to mature and have a different outlook, because all these women have had children. All these women have either been married or have had long-term relationships. And on the other side, they're still complaining like they're 20-year-olds and never had experience. And instead of looking at facts, which they don't, they're basically repeating narratives that every other black woman in the United States complains about, almost verbatim. And last night I was sitting here shaking my head at what I was hearing coming out of their mouths by these particular group of women. And everything they're spouting was a falsehood. It was just something that they internalized, believed, but never even investigated. You would think at this particular point they would have either read or investigated the facts behind something and come to a more mature conclusion. But it just amazed me. Amazed me that 50-year-old accomplished women have the same mindset and same maturity level as a 20-year-old. But they're pissed off that their 20-year-old game doesn't work anymore in their 50s, which is something that, like my grandmother was born in 1910, so she's long been dead. God rest her soul. But I'm not used to seeing women in their 50s, their 40s and 50s with a lack of maturity. Now, the women that I've been around that are wise, they had to struggle. They had to struggle. They had to struggle with their children, had to struggle with their husbands, with their marriages and stuff like that. And hey, everybody goes through that. But on the other side, they came out with some understanding, with some wisdom, with some maturity. You could hear it. And you could see them counsel young girls that were misguided and had misinformation, even if the women weren't educated. Life had taught them experiences. Life had taught them stuff. And they would be in their 40s and they would, how the old women say, child, you're going to learn that this is going to pass and this is something you're going to have to get used to and you're going to have to make a decision about what you're going to do. And they would tell them that just because you jump away from one man doesn't mean that the problem is solved. They used to tell young girls, don't throw away a perfectly good man because what you think is greener on the other side. I've heard my mother's in her 80s, but I've heard my mother tell my daughter wise things. Now, my mother's not educated. She never really was. My mother was a sharecropper. But the wisdom of raising a family and raising children and struggling when she was younger gave her a certain folk wisdom, certain experience that she could impart on my daughter. And a lot of stuff that we say in the manosphere, my mother is telling my daughter about protecting her body by choosing the right men, about how to carry herself. And some people are, smart and wise through study and observation. And some people are wise through struggle and life experience. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing this amongst the older Gen Xers. In fact, sometimes I don't even see it amongst the boomers. A lot of our boomers are in their 60s and 70s. Like I'm a young boomer. But a lot of the Gen X women are not displaying wisdom like I think that they should. I'm not saying all, but a lot of them, like most of them aren't. They're like stuck in delusion. Maybe it's the internet thing. Maybe it's social media. But long before YouTube and Twitter was the thing, this stuff was going on Facebook. This stuff was going on in basically back chats on user groups. And at some point, no matter what black men are or haven't done or what we haven't lived up to, at some point you have to come to grips with that. At some point you have to take solace in it. At some point, pointing fingers doesn't make sense anymore. Because at the end of the day, you go through it and then you have to come to, I wouldn't say a conclusion, but you have to come to some kind of settled position. And acceptance. I think acceptance is the word. Accept the world the way it is. And accept the things that you cannot change. And I think men come to grips with that when they get past 40. They come to grips with things that they can't change. They come to grips with women, especially black women, being who they are. And you have to make a choice. Either you're going to be with them or you're not. You're going to put up with their craziness or you're not. And I think men, especially older black men, are basically coming to these spaces for understanding and not blaming. And I don't think a lot of older Gen Xers, older Gen X women have come to that point yet. Maybe they never will. Maybe it is not in the female makeup to do that. I'm not sure. I know I've seen it. I know that I've seen it with previous generations, but I'm not seeing it with this one. I hope I'm wrong. But with the panel of 4 last night that are accomplished women that are not in this sector, that are not in this class, the working class of men that this sector represents, when I hear it coming from them, then I fail to even speculate about the future of the black community. If these are the wise women that this community has produced in this particular generation, then I shudder to think about the future of the black community. But anyway, that's just my thought. It's not particularly coherent. It's just something I had to get off my chest. It's something that it didn't shock me, but surprised me. Because I understand the poor and working class women that are limited in their scope, in their knowledge. And to some respect, the educated black women that have been indoctrinated. But for the upper class, successful, famous black women to actually think and feel the same way, it's just like, okay, if you have all 5 classes of women that are in the same accord, thinking the same way, then it's a wrap. And it might be time to blow it up and I'll start it all over again, if that's possible. Too many female termites eating away the foundation of the wood, and maybe the building is not salvageable anymore. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments section. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.